Ah, to the Black Forest. Excellent. I go with you. It is good to walk in a forest. Very healthy. Because a forest... Well, I will explain to you what a forest is. We went off with our teacher beyond the town. We were not altogether comfortable having him with us, but pshaw! The teacher walked in the middle, waving his hands and explaining to us what a forest was. The nature of the forest, you must know, is as the Lord has created it. It is full of trees. On the trees are branches, and the branches are covered with leaves that give out a pleasant, pungent odour. As he spoke, he sniffed the air that was not yet either pleasant or pungent. "Well, why are you silent?" he asked. "Say something nice. Sing a song. Well, I was also a boy once, and mischievous like you. I also had a teacher. Ha ha!" That Mazeppa had once been a mischievous boy and had had a teacher, we could not believe. It was curious. Mazeppa? Playful? We exchanged glances and giggled softly. We tried to imagine Mazeppa playful and having a teacher. And did his teacher also? We were afraid to think of such a thing, but Elia stopped to ask a question. "Rebbe, did your teacher also flog you as you flog us?" "What? And what sort of floggings? Ha ha!" We looked at the teacher and at each other. We understood one another. We laughed with him until we were far from the town, in the broad fields close to the forest. The fields were beautiful, a Garden of Eden. Green, fragrant grass, white boughs, yellow flowers, green flies, and above us the blue sky that stretched away endlessly. Facing us was the forest in holiday attire. In the trees the birds hopped, twittering from branch to branch. They were welcoming us on the dear day of Lag BaOmer. We sought shelter from the burning rays of the sun under a thick tree. We sat down on the ground in a row, the Rebbe in the middle. He was worn out. He threw himself on the ground, full length, his face upwards. His eyes were closing. He could hardly manage to speak. "You are dear golden children, Jewish children, saints. I love you and you love me. Oh yes, you love me." "Like a pain in the eyes," replied Elia. "Well, I know you love me," went on the teacher. "May the Lord love you as we do," said Elia. We were frightened and whispered to Elia, "The Lord be with you." "Fools," he said with a laugh. "What are you afraid of? Don't you see he is drunk?" "What?" queried the teacher, one of whose eyes was already closed. "What are you saying? Saints, of course. The guardian of Israel. Hal, hal, hal." And then our teacher fell fast asleep. The snores burst from his nose like the blasts from a ram's horn, sounding far into the forest. We sat around him, and our hearts grew heavy. Is this our teacher? Is this he whose glances we fear? Is this Mazeppa? "Children," said Elia to us, "why are we sitting like lumps of stone? Let us think of a punishment for Mazeppa." A great fear fell upon us. "Fools, what are you afraid of?" he went on. "He is now like a dead body, a corpse." We trembled still more. Elia went on. "Now we may do with him what we like. He flogged us the whole winter as if we were sheep. Let us take revenge of him this once at least." "What would you do to him?" "Nothing. I will only frighten him." "How will you frighten him?" "You shall see." And he got up from the ground. He went over to the teacher, took off his leather strap and said to us, "See,
We will fasten him to the tree with his own belt in such a way that he will not be able to free himself. Then one of us will go over to him and shout in his ear, 'Rebbe, murderers!' What will happen? Nothing. We will run away and he will shout, 'Hero Israel.'" "How long will he shout?" "Until he gets used to it." Without another word, Elia tied the Rebbe to the tree by the hands. We stood looking on, and a shudder passed over our bodies. Is this our teacher? Is this he whose glances we fear? Is this Mazeppa? "Why do you stand there like clay images?" said Elia to us. "The Lord has performed a miracle. Mazeppa has fallen into our hands. Let us dance for joy." We took hands and danced around the sleeping Mazeppa like savages. We danced and leaped and sang like lunatics. We stopped. Elia bent over the sleeping teacher and shouted into his ear in a voice to waken the dead, "Help, Rebbe! Murderers! Murderers! Murderers!" We flew off together like arrows from bows. We were afraid to stop a moment. We were even afraid to look around us. A great dread fell upon us, even upon Elia, though he never ceased from shouting at us, "Donkeys! Fools! Animals! Why do you run?" "Why do you run?" "When you run, I run too." We got into the town full of excitement and still shouting, "Murderers! Murderers!" When the people saw us running, they ran after us. Seeing them running, another crowd ran after them. "Why are you running?" "How are we to know? Others run and we run too." After some time one of our boys stopped, and seeing him we also stopped, but still shouted, "Murderers! Murderers! Murderers!" "Where? Where? Where?" "There, in the Black Forest, murderers beset us. They bound our teacher to a tree, and God knows if he is still alive." If you envy us because we are free, because we do not go to Cheder, the Rebbe is lying ill, it is for nothing, for nothing. No one knows whom the shoe pinches, no one. No one knows who the real murderers are. We rarely see one another. When we meet, the first words are, "How is the teacher?" He is no more Mazeppa. And when we pray, we ask God to save the teacher. We weep in silence, "O Father of the Universe, Father of the Universe." And Elia, don't ask about him. May the devil take him, that same Elia. Epilogue. When the Rebbe recovered, he was ill 6 weeks in the height of fever and babbled constantly of murderers, and we went back to Cheder. We hardly recognized him, so greatly had he changed. What had become of his lion's roar? He had put away his strap, and there was no more "lie down" and no more Mazeppa. On his face there was to be seen a gentle melancholy. A feeling of regret stole into our hearts, and Mazeppa suddenly grew dear to us, dear to our souls. Oh, if he had only scolded us! But it was as if nothing had happened. Suddenly he stopped us in the middle of the lesson and asked us to tell him once again the story of that Lag BaOmer day and of the murderers in the forest. We did not hesitate, but told him again and again the story we knew off by heart, how murderers had come upon us in the forest, how they fell upon him, tied him to the tree and were going to kill him with a knife, and how we rushed excitedly into the town and by our shouting and clamours saved him. The Rebbe listened to us with closed eyes. Then he sighed and asked us suddenly, "Are you quite sure they were murderers?" "What else were they?" "Perhaps bandits?" And the teacher's eyes sought the distance, and we imagined that a curiously cunning smile was hovering around his thick lips. End of chapter 6